Good morning. I'm going to go through some slides real quick to kind of give you some information about what is, what could be. And that's always a very interesting thing with me. And I have a tendency to look at things differently. And that may be a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll share that with you this morning and hope that you'll understand that what I am about, more than anything else, is moving this organization forward. Because there is no hole in the line, and if you're not moving forward, I can assure you, you're moving backwards. And that's collectively, individually, and as an organization. So my technology skills are limited. If you don't know where you're going, any road to get you there. And the vision of Florence School District 1 has always been to have highly motivated, successful students and have them be responsible citizens in an ever-changing society. And I can assure you that in most vision statements, you can't measure them. They're what you aspire to be. Normally, the mission statement is how you get there. And we intend to properly educate and prepare our young people and inspire them to be those responsible citizens that we would like for them to be. After I'd been here about 6-7 months, we did a survey of our community, both internal and external customers. And there was a lot of information on the survey, but the central question was, what skills do our kids need to have in order to have successful futures when they graduate from our high schools? And we have tons of information to come in, and we kind of narrowed that down to really 4 focus areas. And that's what you see on the screen now: literacy, math, technology, and early childhood education. Literacy being reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. Math, technology, and early childhood education. If you go into any of our schools, any day, any time that you want to, you will see these things taking place. And normally at a very high level. I knew that. I knew that the survey would produce this kind of thing, but that's good. Normally the disconnect when you're looking at focus areas is that the support entities are not locked in on these. You know, when I go to our bus drivers and start talking about teaching kids how to read, they look at me like I've got 2 heads. Because that's not what they do, but they do. By getting our kids to and from school safely every day, they facilitate teaching and learning. So I wanted transportation and child nutrition and finance and human resources to set their goals up on these 4 areas. I didn't have to worry about the schools. They do this every day. So we spent some time, really about a half a day, with those support organizations trying to line up our goals so that we're supporting these 4 things. So who we are, and Michelle McBride, if she's in the building this morning, she had to smile because these are our kids at Timrod Elementary School. Michelle here? Yeah, there she is. She's smiling. We're the 2nd largest employer in Florence County, obviously McCall being number 1. We're the 15th largest district in the state of South Carolina, and growing. We have 25 school sites, and those of you who do quick math look up here and say, that's 26. Well, really it's not. It's 25 because one of our early childhood sites is on the campus of Alfred Rush. A little over 1,300 certified employees, 962 classified, and 16,445 kids, and that's up from last year. Now, we're not growing in huge numbers, but it's steady growth. 53% of our kids are African American, 39% are white, 3% Hispanic, and 5% other. And that other, the majority of those are Asian, Native American, and multiracial. 64% of our kids qualify for free and reduced lunch. And that's been pretty consistent here for probably the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right around that 64, 65% percentage. We're a teaching and learning institution. Now, we do a lot of things to facilitate that, but at the end of the day, we are indeed a teaching and learning facility. So when we talk to you about our successes and some of our challenges, they should be wrapped around that core business. So just to give you a little glimpse of some of the things that happened in our school district last year. Going back really to 2009, when you look at our reading and ELA and math and science and social studies test scores, they're relatively flat. We didn't jump up 10 points, we didn't go down 10 points. It's that 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 1 or 2. And yeah, I know that our administrators and our teachers and our school district in general aren't happy with that. We want it to be a steady climb to get to our ultimate goal. Now, you may call this an excuse, but it's not, it's reality. One of the central pieces for me is that kids can read effectively for understanding and comprehension. And when you keep changing the tests, you really don't have any baseline data to measure what your growth is. And as it relates to reading and math, for the past 3 years, we've had 3 different tests. Now, finally, last year, we had South Carolina Ready, and that seems to be the model that we will use moving forward, which gives our teachers and everybody an understanding of what's expected so we can transfer that to our kids. So we're really happy about that piece. So this year, we'll be able to look at last year and see what progress we have made. We had slight increases in our English 1, Biology, U.S. History, and as it relates to our end of course tests, and a slight decrease in Algebra 1. Increased performance in advanced placement courses for 3 consecutive years. Our dual enrollment went to 471 students last year, and the previous years were 158. And not only are our kids taking these dual credit courses, look at the pass rate, 98.5%. So they're taking these classes and they're doing well. Our SATs have increased 67 points over the past 4 years. Our dropout rate last year was 1.9%, which is the lowest it has been since 2012. And our on-time graduation is at an all-time high of 84.4%. And I really think we can get that number to 90. Challenges with all the information that I just showed you is that we have significant achievement gaps in our district. And it's related to race, socioeconomic, gender, language, and exceptionalities. You know, if I had the answer to that challenge, I wouldn't be standing in front of you today. I'd be on the circuit making a whole lot of money, because this is an issue throughout the country. Not making excuses, it's just reality. And people are trying a lot of different things to close that achievement gap. And so are we. And we're working hard at that. And we're gonna have to work smarter at that for our kids. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little later on in my presentation. Challenges of teacher recruitment and retention. We have one of the best retention rates in the state of South Carolina. So once we get them here, we have a good chance of keeping them here. Florence is a good place to live, good place to work. Our problem, and I really saw it full force this past summer, we're running out of teachers. And I mean, we're running out of teachers. State of South Carolina, North Carolina, all of the institutions on the East Coast are producing teachers, and we're going everywhere we can go to get them. But we got to get them. And creating a system that makes Florence even more attractive for teachers to come here is something that we have to spend some time on. Now, we're one of the 33 school districts that was in the Abbeville lawsuit, and the General Assembly saw fit to give us some money to work on teacher recruitment and retention, and we're in the process of developing our plan. It's one-time money, maybe, Terry. We kind of like to have that as reoccurring, but right now it's one-time money, and hopefully it'll be a good thing. Professional development, another thing that can attract teachers. You know, I look at professional development differently in my old age. I used to go to a lot of conferences and get great information and come back and maybe share it with 1 or 2 people, and life would go on. I've shifted my thinking in professional development to a go-see mode. I want to see successful programs. I want to interact with successful people and find out how they got to where they are. That does a little bit more for me sometimes than going to conferences. So the problem isn't we don't want to do that. The problem is that we don't have resources to do that. So a different look at how we do professional development. And that third bullet is extremely important in my opinion, the instructional delivery model. You know, we can go in some classrooms, and I'll give some examples as I go through this. You know, I was at Timrod twice over the past couple of weeks, one with a school visit from the board and another one with the Fellows in Education. And Michelle's been working on blended learning, she tells me, for about 2 years. And she's on a year-round calendar, so she went to visit a school. She went to see a school. And on their free time, she had 17 teachers to volunteer to go with her to see. It's pretty impressive. And it didn't take them but a minute to come back. And when I walked into those classrooms the last 2 times I visited over there, I thought, this is it. This is it. She's created that blended classroom model that I think she was after. It's not perfect. It's new. She's going to make some mistakes. Things are not going to go well. That's what happens when you change. But I was really impressed in every classroom, because you're going to see blended learning in kindergarten, in first grade. You're going to see it. Whether the teacher wants to do it or not, you're going to see it. It happens. But when you get up to grades 4th, 5th, and 6th, sometimes you don't see it. Timrod, every classroom that we went in, you saw it. I thought that was really good. The instructional delivery model and how we give information to kids has to change. You know why? The kid changed. Not the same one anymore. So we have to do something different to engage them in the teaching and learning process. So that's a challenge for us as well. So I give you those challenges and I give you those issues, and you probably say, well, what are you going to do about it? I can remember our chairman one time early in my tenure here, and I gave them a bunch of information, too much, about 14 pages worth of stuff. And after I'd been here about 6 months, and he looked at it and laid it down on the table and then looked at me and said, what are you going to do about it? You know, we agree with everything you wrote down there. That's fine. What are you going to do about it? So I'm going to go through a few slides and just some thoughts. And these are mine. Those individuals that stood up in here, the leaders of our schools, if I said to them, tell me how you changed this, they got a ton of really super ideas. I can assure you that. But they don't have the engine to drive change that they need, the resources that they need. And I'm not talking about just money. Now that helps. But the flexibility to use resources differently is something that they need as well. But you know, I talk to a lot of parents, and they say things about academic performance and curriculum, and my kid wants to go to college and all those things. But you know, at the end of the day, what they really want, number one, is that my kid's going to get on that bus, or I'm going to drop him off in the morning, and they're going to return safely to me in the afternoon. That's the top priority. So we work hard at having safe schools. So that's one thing, and it's ever changing. Mr. Brown comes to me with something new on a regular basis. We need to do this. And it's all about making our schools safer for our employees and for our kids. Attendance. Sounds simple. Early in my tenure here, I was sitting at Royal Elementary School talking to Julie Smith. And that's right after they had been named a National Blue Ribbon School. And somewhere in the process, she said, my attendance rate last year was 97% for my students. And I thought, well, it's an elementary school. That's probably what it should be. And then she said something very powerful. She said, I did not have a substitute teacher in my building last year. And I kind of did a double take and said, say it again. She said, we didn't have a substitute teacher in our building last year. We figured out a way internally for our teachers to cover those classes. Well, I knew right after she said that, you got a 97% student attendance rate. They're in front of a highly qualified and effective teacher every day. I get it. I know why you're a National Blue Ribbon School. That combination, so it's just something as simple as making sure that kids are in school every day. Because guess what? They learn more in school than they do out of school. Highly qualified and effective teachers in every classroom is a no-brainer, but it's hard to do because of the teacher shortage that we have. Early intervention. Our school board and administration made a huge contribution to early childhood education in our district, and I think it's a brilliant decision. Most school districts know it's the right thing to do, they just don't do it. But here in Florence, you put that in place, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in a few minutes too. Smaller class sizes, kindergarten through 3rd grade. That's the next step for our early childhood initiative, in my opinion. Because if you can work kindergarten through 3rd grade with small class sizes with a really laser-like focus on math and reading, no disrespect to science and social studies, but if you can't read, you can't do the other two. So if you put a really laser-like focus on math and reading, kindergarten through 3rd grade, small class sizes, highly qualified and effective teachers, guess what? When those kids get to middle and high school, you won't have the issues that a lot of school districts have. Research-based reading and math programs. I always thought that having a universal reading and math program at the elementary level was probably the best way to go. Not sure that it is now from a data perspective, but something I'd like to try. We're a reading recovery district. Every school has that. I'm a huge supporter of reading recovery. But I'd like to explore the opportunities or some options about some other reading and math programs. I'm a big looping fan. That's because I always wanted to be an elementary school principal, never got my shot. Back to that teacher or that kid having a highly qualified and effective teacher, then research would tell you that the longer they're exposed to that teacher, the more they learn. So sometimes it's a good thing to have that highly qualified and effective teacher loop with kids. Not all kids, and most of the time it's the kids who struggle. And if you get that consistency, they have a tendency to be successful. So it's not something that you do school-wide. You can do situationally for certain kids. As you move up the grades, I think one of the things you could do to impact and address some of our challenges is to look at the transitional grades. For us, that's 5th, 7th, and 9th. Reduce class sizes in those places too, and focus in also on having that highly qualified and effective teacher interacting with those kids and figuring out a way, the last bullet, to use time differently. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but we need to have the ability and the flexibility to allow our principals to do that. So there's some what ifs, and those are just thoughts from a district systemic perspective. And as I said, you can talk with our teachers and our principals, and they can give you many more. So, other challenges. Environment, as far as I'm concerned. You know, we have ongoing maintenance needs. Roof repair, HVAC. I was at Wilson High School the other day, and I couldn't see the lines to park. You know, so we need parking lots resurfaced and need those striped and upgrade our athletic facilities and paint our schools. And the one that really hurts my heart is that our kids are in 184 mobile units throughout this district. 184 mobile units throughout this district. And that seems to be okay. Nobody really talks about that a lot. And it's kind of alarming to me when I arrived and I'd go visit an elementary school and I'd try to hit every classroom, you know, see every teacher at least, 30 seconds, and I'd start heading for the front door. And somebody said, well, Dr. Bridges, you didn't get a chance to see the teachers in the mobiles. I said, oh, okay. And it turns out that those mobiles are on about every campus in our district, with the exception of the new schools. They're there. Sometimes you may miss them, but they're there. Ask Pam, quick. You may not see them at the front of West Florence High School, but there's about 22 of them out back. And we've got to do something about that. And that's a community thing. It's not a school thing. That's a community thing. We're pleased with our pay-as-you-go building program. It's built a number of facilities over the years, and we continue to do that. We're in phase 2 of our building plan. The new Del May Elementary School will open up for the 2017-18 school year. It'll be a beautiful school. You'll be proud of it, just like you are the other ones that we built here. And the board's going to have a retreat this afternoon at 6 o'clock to really talk about facilities and how you can speed up that process. You know, people say to me often, you need to worry about some of the kids who are not going to college. And I always tell them when I go into a kindergarten classroom, I pretty much say, and I love kindergarten classrooms, by the way, I pretty much tell all the kids in there, you're going to college, all of them. Because I don't have the ability to select the ones who aren't. So if you think that getting a college degree is not something that's really important, you know, we're very proud of the fact that our seniors last year got $25 million in scholarship to go to 2 and 4 year institutions. And almost 80% of them took advantage of that. They're in a 2 or 4 year institution. That's a pretty high number. Yes, Ms. Hill, those are yours. Well, Carol is, there she is. So the benefits of having a college degree. When I saw this slide, I thought I got to put that in. You need to see that. The difference between a person that gets a high school diploma and a college degree as it relates to their average annual income, unemployment, and lifetime earnings. So we don't need to be telling our kids that need to go to college. I think we'll be doing them a disservice if we don't. Are all of them going to go? No. Are we going to do something to address the needs of those kids who don't go? Absolutely. But we need to start out saying that they're all going to college, if for nothing else, this slide. We have so many partnerships that I can't name them all, but I wanted to focus in on just a few. You know, we had a wonderful relationship with Florence Darlington Technical College. And Dr. Dillard is here this morning, and we're on his campus often. And I showed you the information about the dual enrollment between our school district and Florence Darlington Tech and Francis Marion University. And we're really pleased with the early college program that we're at Wilson High School, that eventually our kids can get not only a high school diploma, but walk across the stage and also pick up a 2-year associate of arts degree. So we're really excited about that partnership. Have a great partnership with the City of Florence that eventually is going to produce the renovation of the McClinigan High School and turn it into a central office. We're trying to renovate all 3 floors of that, and really excited about that. And following that, our partnership with Francis Marion University has a possibility of turning what is now Poynter into a magnet high school of the arts and or health sciences in downtown Florence. Really excited about that partnership and some of the things that we can do with that. In that same partnership, what spun out of that was a new R.N. Beck Child Development Center. We were over a few weeks ago, last week I think it was, when we started taking that building down. And some amazing stories from some of the community members who were standing there, tears in their eyes, when they reflected back on how they went to that school and had memories of that, and that was very touching. But we're going to replace it with a brand new, almost $8 million 16 classroom facility that'll be state of the arts, and really excited about that already underway. You know, somebody tells me every now and then, you know, you get a guy who's out of town come in and he becomes an expert. So I really believe that the past plus the future equals the present. And there's a guy, this guy, that started and is the CEO of the Harlem Children's Zone. And at the time, kids weren't doing very well. And he had a model and he had a plan and he put it together. He got corporate sponsorship and he turned it into something that is unbelievable. So he's going to say a lot of things I think I just said, but I'm one of you. This guy isn't. He's at the national level and he talks a little bit about schools. And this is a short, about a 15-minute clip, and then after that I'm almost done. So the 9 o'clock thing, well, give me the 9:05, just 9:05. But I thought you may enjoy just seeing this for a second.
I'm a little nervous because my wife, Yvonne, said to me, she said, Jeff, you watch the TED Talks? I said, yes, honey, I love TED Talks. She said, you know they're like really smart, talented people. I said, I know. She said, they don't want like the angry black man. So I said, no, I'm gonna be good, honey, I'm gonna be good, I am, but I am angry. And the last time I looked, this is why I'm excited, but I'm angry. This year, there are gonna be millions of our children that we're gonna needlessly lose. That we could, right now, we could save them all. You saw the quality of the educators who were here. Do not tell me they could not reach those kids and save them. I know they could. It is absolutely possible. Why haven't we fixed this? Those of us in education have held on to a business plan that we don't care how many millions of young people fail. We're going to continue to do the same thing that didn't work. And nobody is getting crazy about it, right? Enough to say enough is enough. So here's a business plan that simply does not make any sense. You know, I grew up in the inner city, and there were kids who were failing in schools 56 years ago when I first went to school. And those schools are still lousy today. 56 years later. And you know something about a lousy school? It's not like a bottle of wine, right? where you say like 87 was like a good year, right? That's not how this thing, I mean, every single year, it's still the same approach, right? One size fits all. If you get it, fine, and if you don't, tough luck. Just tough luck. Why haven't we allowed innovation to happen? Do not tell me we can't do better than this. Look, you go into a place that's failed kids for 50 years, and you say, so what's the plan? And they say, well, we're going to do what we did last year this year. What kind of business model is that? Banks used to open and operate between 10 and 3. They operate 10 to 3. They will close for lunch hour. Now, who can bank between 10 and 3? The unemployed. They don't need banks. They got no money in the banks. Who created that business model, right? And it went on for decades. You know why? Because they didn't care. It wasn't about the customers. It was about bankers. They created something that works for them. How could you go to the bank when you were at work? It didn't matter. Then they don't care whether or not Jeff is upset he can't go to the bank. Go find another bank. They all operate the same way, right? Now, one day, some crazy banker had an idea. Maybe we should keep the bank open when people come home from work. They might like that. What about a Saturday? What about introducing technology? Now, look, I'm a technology fan, but I have to admit to you all, I'm a little old. So it was a little slow, and I did not trust technology. And when they first came out with those new contraptions, these tellers that you put in a card and they give you money, I was like, there's no way that machine is going to count that money right. I am never using that, right? So technology has changed. Things have changed. Yet not in education. Why? Why is it that when we had rotary phones, when we were having folks being crippled by polio, that we were teaching the same way then that we're doing right now? And if you come up with a plan to change things, people consider you radical. They will say the worst things about you. I said one day, well, look, if the science says, this is science, not me, that our poorest children lose ground in the summertime, right? You see where they are in June, you say, okay, they're there. You look at them in September, they've gone down. You say, woo. So I heard about that in '75 when I was at the ed school at Harvard. I said, oh, wow, this is an important study because it suggests we should do something. Every 10 years, they reproduce the same study. It says exactly the same thing. Poor kids lose ground in the summertime. The system decides you can't run schools in the summer. You know, I always wonder, who makes up those rules? For years, I went to the Harvard Ed School. I thought I knew something. They said it was the agrarian calendar and the people had, but let me tell you why that doesn't make sense. I never got that. I never got that because anyone who knows if you farm, you don't plant crops in July and August. You plant them in the spring. So who came up with this idea? Who owns it? Why did we ever do it? Well, it just turns out in the 1840s, we did have, schools were open all year. They were open all year because we had a lot of folks who had to work all day. They didn't have any place for their kids to go. It was a perfect place to have schools. So this is not something that is ordained from the education gods. So why don't we? Why don't? Because our business has refused to use science. Science. If you have Bill Gates coming out and say, look, this works, right? We can do this. How many places in America are going to change? None. None. Okay, yeah, there are 2. All right? Yes, there'll be some place there because some folks will do the right thing. As a profession, we have to stop this. The science is clear. Here's what we know. We know that the problem begins immediately. Right? This idea 0 to 3. My wife Yvonne and I, we have 4 kids, 3 grown ones and a 15-year-old. It's a longer story. With our first kids, we did not know the science about brain development. We didn't know how critical those first 3 years were. We didn't know what was happening in those young brains. We didn't know the role that language, a stimulus and response, call and response, how important that was in developing those children. We know that now. What are we doing about it? Nothing. Wealthy people know, educated people know, and their kids have an advantage. Poor people don't know, and we're not doing anything to help them at all. But we know this is critical. Now, you take pre-kindergarten. We know it's important for kids. Poor kids need that experience. Nope. Lots of places, doesn't exist. We know health services matter. People, we provide health services, and people are always fussing at me about, because I'm all into, accountability and data and all of that good stuff. But we do health services. I have to raise a lot of money. And people used to say, when they come fund us, Jeff, why do you provide these health services? I used to make stuff up, right? I'd say, well, a child who has cavities is not going to be able to study as well. And I had to, because I had to raise the money, right? But now I'm older, and you know what I tell them? You know why I provide kids with those health benefits and the sports and the recreation and arts? Because I actually like kids, right? I actually like kids, right? But when they really get pushy, people really get pushy, I say, I do it because you do it for your kid. And you've never read a study from MIT that says giving your kid dance instruction, right, is going to help them do algebra better. But you will give that kid dance instruction, and you will be thrilled that that kid wants to do dance instruction, and it'll make your day. And why shouldn't poor kids have the same opportunity? It's the floor for these children. So here's the other thing. I'm a tester guy. I believe you need data, you need information, because you work at something, you think it's working, and you find out it's not working, right? I mean, educators, you work, you say, you think you got it, you're great. No, and you find out they didn't get it. But here's the problem with testing. The testing that we do, we're going to have our test in New York next week, right? It's in April. We're going to get the results back. Maybe July, maybe June. And the results have great data. They'll tell you Raheem really struggled, couldn't do 2-digit multiplication, and it's so great data, but you're getting it back after school is over. And so what do? You go on vacation. You come back from vacation, now you've got all of this test data from last year. You don't look at it. Why would you look at it? You're going to go and teach this year. So how much money did we just spend on all of that? Billions and billions of dollars for data that it's too late to use it. I need that data in September. I need that data in November. I need to know you're struggling, and I need to know whether or not what I did corrected that. I need to know that this week. I don't need to know that at the end of the year when it's too late, because in my older years I've become somewhat of a clairvoyant. I can predict school scores. You take me to any school. I'm really good at inner city schools that are struggling. And you tell me last year, 48% of those kids were on grade level. And I say, okay, what's the plan? What did we do from last year to this year? You say we're doing the same thing. I'm going to make a prediction. This year, somewhere between 44 and 52% of those kids will be on grade level, and I will be right every single time, right? So we're spending all of this money, but we're getting what? Teachers need real information right now about what's happening to their kids. The high stakes is today, because you can do something about it. So here's the other issue that I just think we've got to be concerned about. We can't stifle innovation in our business. We have to innovate. And people in our business get mad about innovation. They get angry if you do something different. If you try something new, people always say, it's charter schools. Yeah, it's charter. Let's try some stuff. Let's see. This stuff hasn't worked for 55 years. Let's try something different. And here's the rub. Some of it's not going to work. You know, people tell me, yeah, those charter schools, a lot of them don't work. A lot of them don't. They should be closed. I mean, I really believe they should be closed. But we can't confuse figuring out the science and things not working with we shouldn't therefore do anything, right? Because that's not the way the world works. You think about technology. Imagine if that's how we thought about technology. Every time something didn't work, we just threw in a towel and said, let's forget it, right? You know, they convinced me, I'm sure some of you would like me, the latest and greatest thing, the Palm Pilot. They told me, Jeff, if you get this Palm Pilot, you'll never need another thing. That thing lasted all of 3 weeks. It was over. I was so disgusted I spent my money on this thing. Did anybody stop inventing? Not a person, not a soul. The folks went out there, they kept inventing. The fact that you have failure, that shouldn't stop you from pushing the science forward. Our job as educators, there's some stuff we know that we can do, and we've got to do better. The evaluation, we have to start with kids early. We have to make sure that we provide the supports of young people. We've got to give them all of these opportunities. So that we have to do. But this innovation issue, this idea that we've got to keep innovating until we really nail this science down is something that is absolutely critical. And this is something, by the way, that I think is going to be a challenge for our entire field. America cannot wait another 50 years to get this right. We have run out of time. I don't know about a fiscal cliff, but I know there's an educational cliff that we are walking over right this very second. And if we allow folks to continue this foolishness about saying we can't afford this, so Bill Gates says it's going to cost $5 billion. What is $5 billion to the United States? What did we spend in Afghanistan this year? How many trillions, when the country cares about something, we'll spend $1 trillion without blinking an eye. When the safety of America is threatened, we will spend any amount of money. The real safety of our nation is preparing this next generation so that they can take our place and be the leaders of the world when it comes to thinking and technology and democracy and all that stuff we care about. I dare say it's a pittance what it would require for us to really begin to solve some of these problems. So once we do that, I'll no longer be angry. So you guys, right, help me get there. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
As I said, sometimes you need to hear it from somebody who's successful. And if you get a chance today and Google Jeffrey Canada and his Harlem's Children's Zone, do that, and you'll see. So what are we doing about innovation? What are we doing about doing things differently and change? And I tell our principals and district office staff that change feels like failure in the middle. In other words, when you start something new and you move it forward and you meet with resistance and you meet with failure, the easiest thing to do is to revert back to the way you used to do it. So it feels like failure in the middle, but you got to push through that. So I'm really excited about, and these are just some of them. You can go in our schools, and there's a lot of things going on, but new literacy programs, language immersion program, year-round calendars, online math and language art opportunities. I spoke about the early college program, virtual classrooms in the district. Our advanced, we call it AVID program. Our high school and middle schools are working with the Southern Regional Education Board, and that's all about curriculum and a different instructional delivery model. A STEM magnet school, exploring the possibility of having a PYP-IB school, which is a primary year IB program at one of our elementary schools. A one-to-one initiative, a true one-to-one initiative where kids have those devices 24/7, which learning can occur. And Discovery Education, and have 9 schools that are involved with that, but that digital content is available to all of our schools, as well as some sampling with tech books, moving away from the hard copy book and using online books. So there's a lot of things that are happening in the district that are innovative projects that we put in place with some resources and funding that was provided by the board. And those sites and the schools that are involved with these things are going to experience some failures. They're going to get some things wrong, but they'll be moving forward and doing these things for the right reasons. Quickly, you probably have read the boards involved in the conversation about our grade reconfiguration. Right now we have 4 elementaries that are K-4 and 9 that are K-6, 1 intermediate school, and 3 7-8 middle schools. That's a mouthful. And we're trying to move that to, or at least exploring and discussing, having 13 elementary schools, grades K through 5, and 4 6 through 8 middle schools. That was easier to say. But there are a lot of reasons behind that, and those conversations are ongoing, and we'll have some this afternoon at our retreat. And hopefully, by the end of those conversations, we'll decide what's best for us. If the current model is the best thing for us and for our kids, then fine. If there's a way to do it differently, then we'll do it differently. Will we meet with some difficulties and problems with that? Yes, we will. But there again, change feels like failure in the middle. That's the last slide, and I'm right on it. You know, I talked a lot about moving from good to great. And you can talk to anybody in the state of South Carolina about Florence School District 1, and you'll probably get a pretty common response. It's a good school district. As a matter of fact, we know it. We're kind of proud of that. But we can't be content there. As I told you in the beginning, you're doing one of two things. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. There's no such thing as holding the line. What we have to do is create a sense of urgency now. Jeffrey Kennedy talked about walking over that educational cliff. And we don't have another 50 years to get this right. It's now, whether it's facilities, instructional delivery model, technology, teacher retention and recruitment, you name it, it has to happen now. We can't wait. I'm old, and I'm okay with that. You know, I'd always rather be seen than to be viewed. But the thing about getting old is that your patience get kind of worn out. And I've been in education over 35 years. And I'm a little tired of we'll get to it eventually. I want to do it now. Or at least have somebody tell me, you can't do it, and here's why. Then we all have decisions to make after that. But we have to put it to our community because this is not a Florence School District 1 issue in and of itself. This is a community issue. It's a quality of life issue. And for things to continue to move forward in our community and with all the things that are going on in downtown Florence and just around the community that I ride around and look at schools and look at development, all the things that are going on, the core of that in any successful community is a public school system. You can do anything you want to do, economic development. The driver of that train is the quality of education you have in the community. And they will tell you that. When business and industry come here, and you can ask Mike this, if it's not the first question, it's second. Tell me about your public school system. Tell me about your public school system. And if the answer doesn't come back right on that, chances are very good, not gonna get that business. They're gonna move on. So we're fortunate enough that people are coming here, industry is coming here, business is coming here, because we have a good school district. We need to have a sense of urgency to move from good to great. I appreciate you being here this morning. I didn't build in a question and answer session, but I don't have another appointment till 10 o'clock. So I'll stand here and answer any questions that you want, but officially, right now, it's 9 on the nose and this meeting is over. Thank you so much.